Hello, everybody. My name is Jenna Barron, news editor of SD Times. I'd like to welcome you to episode 1 of the SD Times live microwebinar series with the data quality company Melissa. Today, we'll be talking about global email verification. In this 10-minute microwebinar, you'll learn how you can optimize email communication by verifying and correcting email addresses at the syntax, domain, and mailbox levels. With me to discuss this is Puya Tavakoli, sales engineer at Melissa. Thanks for joining me today, Puya.
My pleasure.
So to kick off our conversation today, why is it important to cleanse mailing lists?
Right. So the first and foremost, the benefit of cleansing a mailing list is just going to be improved deliverability across the board, since you're going to be sending it to pre-validated emails. And this will lead to greater consumer engagement. It's going to reduce your bounce rates. And all of these things are going to help garner and maintain better marketing leads for the company. And in return, this also saves the company a lot of time and resources that would otherwise go to either chasing down those bad leads or trying to make sense of why a marketing campaign didn't perform well. And one of the lesser known benefits of cleansing a mailing list is going to be preventing any harm to your sender reputation score. And for those that don't know, a sender reputation score is basically like a secret tally of your sending server, IP or domain that a lot of mail service providers will look at when receiving emails from you. And based on this score, you can either choose to route you through to the inbox, flag you as a spam and send you to the spam box, and in the worst cases, even blacklist you if your score is bad enough. And that's another thing that the company would then have to dedicate time and resources to get removed from those blacklists.
What do you find to be the biggest challenges of email validation, and how does Melissa's global email solution address those challenges?
So one of the biggest challenges of email validation is the lack of a universally accepted syntax for email addresses. There are some general guidelines put forth by the Internet Engineering Task Force, which is the closest thing we have to a regulating body for the internet. And these touch on some things such as the use of special characters or how many @ symbols there should be in an email, what's allowed in a domain name. However, there are many email service providers that allow emails that go directly against those guidelines. Some even allow for emojis in an email address. So global email solution to this is to not only adhere to those guidelines set forth by the IETF, but also facilitate validation of some of those more unorthodox mailboxes. And because the last thing you want to do is to miss out on a valid email just because it looks like it's not adhering to the guidelines. And that's mainly for mailboxes. And when it comes to domain corrections, one of Global Email's greatest strengths is our domain correction capabilities. We have not only a database of well-known domain names as well as their historical counterparts and their commonly misspelled typos, but our algorithm is set up to only return high confidence corrections. So you're not going to get a valid domain that sounds like it should be another domain corrected into the what would be the incorrect domain. A good example of this is like Yahoo and Yahoo. Those are both actual domains, and you can see how easily one might change Yahoo to Yahoo. So those are some of the bigger challenges of email validation.
What are some of the maybe lesser known obstacles of email communication?
Yeah, so there's a couple of them, and one of the most more recent ones are the domain authentication protocols that a lot of mail providers are increasingly relying on. And what these are basically like a little check on the sending server, and depending on the protocol in use, the sending server has to pass pass certain specifications or meet certain requirements before the receiving server can accept them. Um, and global email will readily return name of the domain authentication protocol that the mail server is using. So then on the sender's end, you can either look at that and set up your mail server to meet those requirements, or look at it and decide, hey, maybe it's not worth it to go through the trouble of fixing our mail server, and we're just gonna kind of avoid sending an email to that domain. An example of this is like DMARC, which is a fancy way of saying that the server's domain name should match the domain name in the from section of an email. It can be as simple as that, and it can get complicated as well.
What are the sorts of emails that senders should be exercising caution with?
Right. So obviously, any invalid emails, just purely invalid, either because of a syntax or because the mail server is not reachable. You want to avoid those. But there are also a number of special emails that will be valid. They will accept mail, but the way they handle your mail may be harmful. A couple examples of this are spam trap emails. Now, spam traps are specifically set up to flag uh, senders as spam. This is very crucial to avoid if you're doing any sort of marketing campaign or marketing communications, because they're very quick to flag a domain or an IP as spam. Mobile domains are another example. These are used to send out SMS communications, and they're regulated by the FCC. And sending any emails to these domains can incur fines from the FCC, which you'd want to avoid. A couple other examples would be disposable domains, such as one-time use domains. These are domains that are going to cease existing after a certain period of time, so you don't want to be sending mails to those. And then a tricky one is something like accept all servers. Accept all servers will show themselves as being valid regardless of the true nature of the mailbox in question. And so it's really a gamble anytime that you choose to send to an accept all server. It's sort of 50-50 whether or not the email will get delivered.
So to wrap things up here, how can businesses apply global emails results to their business practices?
That's a great question. And it really comes down to context. For example, if you're putting together a mailing list for a marketing campaign, you're going to want to be stricter in how you filter out those emails. You want to be avoiding things like those spam trap emails. You want to observe and see whether you need to adjust your mail server to meet those domain authentication protocols that we talked about, because your main goal is to reach a large audience of potential customers, but then your sub objective is going to be to avoid any harm to your sender reputation. On the other side, for things like onboarding, you don't have to be quite as restrictive with it. Now, clearly, you don't want to have any purely invalid emails coming into your contact list, but you can choose to take on those things like accept all servers or disposable domains just to kind of grow your business contact. Uh, but it's also useful to keep a flag on those special type of emails when they're in your contact list, just for future reference.
Well, that's all we have for today. Remember, you can watch a replay of this video on sdtimes.com, which should be posted within the next 24 hours or so. This is the first episode in a series of micro webinars that we'll be doing with Melissa, and you can catch the next one on global name verification on July 18th. And if you want to learn more about Melissa and global email, you'll want to head over to melissa.com. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Bye.